planet. Please do engage with us on social media. You can find us through the handle @Hindu American. We're honored to be joined by esteemed members of the Hindu community, interfaith leaders, members of government, and survivors of the 1971 Bengali Hindu genocide. Tonight, we're going to learn about the 1971 Bengali Hindu genocide, commemorate the dreams and hopes of those lost through a beautiful Bengali rendition of Sukhodin Nishadin, find a way forward through the inspirational Sanskrit song, Maitrim Bhajata, honor those who have taken action, and learn what we can all do together to affirm this genocide. Let's first begin with a special invocation by Hindu American vocalist Vindhya Adapa. Vindhya is an attorney advisor at the U.S. Department of Treasury's International Affairs Division. She focuses on matters appearing before the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, South and Southeast Asia, trade, banking, and other legal matters facing the Treasury. With this invocation to Ma Durga, we bring forth the strength, peace, hope, and compassion within us all. Ma Durga is of special importance to many of our Bangladeshi Hindu brothers and sisters, and so with this invocation, we wish to honor them.
Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Samstitha Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Samstitha Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shanti Rupena Samstitha Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shraddha Rupena Samstitha Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Daya Rupena Samstitha Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha
Thank you, Vindhya. In the 10-month genocide in 1971, over 200,000 to 400,000 women were brutally raped in rape camps. 2 to 3 million people were massacred, and 10 million were displaced. Please join me now in a moment of prayer and remembrance for those that were lost and for those who have survived. I'd like to now give a warm welcome to Devadosh Da, the son of survivors. Devadosh will recall some of the challenges his family faced as they fled to India as refugees in 1971, as well as the broader context of the genocide. Many of Devadosh's family members were impacted by the genocide. His grandfather was taken by Rajakars, or Bangladeshi co-conspirators, and later executed by the Pakistan military. His family took refuge in India, and he now works and lives in the United States as a biopharmaceutical company.
নমস্কার, My name is Devotosh. The country Bangladesh was born in 1971. It has been 50 years since the independence of Bangladesh. In 1971, millions of Hindus were brutally tortured and killed by the Pakistan army and its co-conspirators, the Rajakars. Millions of Hindu women were raped. This Hindu genocide is one of the largest genocides in human history. I have few relatives and acquaintances who were living in East Pakistan in 1971 and each have had their own traumatic experiences. Whenever they recall their experiences of 1971, I see a fear in their eyes. They still carry that trauma to this very day. One relative was living at a place near Jamalpur in Moymonsinh. His parents, his wife, sisters, and brother were living with him. After the historic speech of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman on 7th March, the Pakistan army indiscriminately fired on the common people. The Pakistan army also attacked the Hindu students and teachers at the Jagannath Hall and killed and wounded many of them. The attack of Pakistan army gradually spread to various cities and villages. All the communications got disrupted, trains stopped running, radio and TV stations were shut down. Indian news channels and BBC news channel were blocked. Torture and killing of Hindus continued. An atmosphere of fear and panic got created. Hindus all over East Pakistan started to look for a safe shelter. My relative got the information that the Pakistan army reached Jamalpur and set fire to the Dayamoyi Kali Mandir in Jamalpur. My relative discussed the situation to his co-worker and friend. His co-worker's father-in-law was living at a place named Shanondabari, which was close to the Indian border. So my relative was thinking that if he and his family could move to Shanondabari, then they might get safe shelter on the Indian side of the border. So he rented 2 bullock carts. They put all their foodstuff and belongings in the bullock cart. They started their journey in the morning on 22nd May. Older people and women were sitting in the bullock carts. The younger people were walking. The coachman didn't know the correct way towards the destination. They were treading on an unknown path. There was no proper road in its true sense. There was no distinction between the road and the bank of the river. They got information that the Rajakars were robbing all the belongings of the Hindus who were going towards the Indian border from the Jamalpur side. On their way, they met other Hindu refugees in 3 other bullock carts. Though they started their journey towards Shanondabari, they were traveling on an unknown path and reached at a different place named Mohendraganj, which was located at the Indian border. They met 2 BSF officers at the border checkpost. They explained their situation to the BSF officers. After some paperwork, the BSF officers allowed them to enter into India. They were provided shelter in the refugee camp. Their lives started in the refugee camp. History as we know it unraveled. The Pakistan army surrendered on 16th December 1971. Finally, the Bangladesh gained its independence.
Thank you, Debatoshta. I now call upon Dipali Kulkarni, our Director of Human Rights, to provide an overview of the 1971 genocide. Dipali.
Thank you, Suhag. Namaste, everyone. I'd like to start with a quote by Senator Edward Kennedy from 1971. 50 years ago, on the Senate floor, he made this passionate plea. It is past time for Americans to understand what has produced this massive human tragedy and to recognize the bankrupt response of our government. As Senator Kennedy stated, it is past time for Americans to understand and recognize this tragedy. Today, I'm going to provide some information on what we can begin to do to fulfill Senator Kennedy's wish that we serve those who are suffering, to remember the lost, and celebrate survivors. I'm going to give a very brief history today. And so before I start, I want to offer a small caveat that the issues on the ground were far more complex than what can be summarized here. And I hope you'll use our web portal, which I'll introduce a little later, as a resource to learn more about the genocide from many different perspectives. I'm going to start this history with the partition of India. As many of you know, India gained independence from colonial British rule in 1947 and was then divided into two separate countries, India and Pakistan. The country of Pakistan then consisted of West Pakistan, modern Pakistan, and East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. Between the 1947 partition and the 1971 partition of Pakistan and Bangladesh, there was a lot of systematic and physical violence against Hindus. Precipitants of the genocide included anti-Hindu pogroms and an attempt to make Urdu the national language of all of Pakistan, and therefore excluding Bengali-speaking Hindus. Additionally, more than 300,000 people, and some estimates put it as high as 500,000 people, in East Pakistan died in the Bola cyclone on November 11th, 1970. West Pakistan declined to send aid. After a democratic election on December 7th, 1970, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman of the Awami League won 167 of 169 seats, an overwhelming majority. The Awami League campaigned to form a separate country of Bangladesh, which would have led to the peaceful separation of East Pakistan and West Pakistan. But we know that's not the case. And so I want you all to remember these figures, that 200 to 400,000 women were raped, many of them in rape camps, 2 to 3 million were killed, 10 million displaced, and there's a legacy of continued violence against minorities in Bangladesh. Between the 1947 partition and the 1971 partition, there was a lot of violence. But what happened during the genocide was far and above the violence that had preceded it. On March 26, 1971, Bangladesh planned to declare independence. So on March 25, 1971, in anticipation of this event and a show of force, the Pakistan military began Operation Searchlight, a military action to suppress the Bangladeshi independence movement. This began the 10-month Bangladesh Liberation War. In the first night, the Pakistan army targeted Hindu neighborhoods and villages, starting first at Jagannath Hall, a Hindu dormitory in Dhaka University. Between 5,000 and 100,000 people were killed in the first night. The then US Consul General in Dhaka, Archer K. Blood, had this to say about the beginning of the genocide. Quote, "They were not political refugees. They were just poor, very low-class people, mostly Hindus, who were very much afraid that they would be killed solely because they were Hindu." End quote. In addition to these staggering numbers of the killed and displaced, at least 200 to 400,000 women were raped during the 10-month genocide. By November 1971, approximately 10 million refugees, a majority of whom were Hindu, had fled to India. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's officials noted that Pakistan hoped to reduce the number of Hindus in Bangladesh by, quote, "driving out Hindus in their millions," end quote. Seeing this devastation, Senator Edward Kennedy said in the same Senate report I quoted earlier, quote, "Nothing is more clear or more easily documented than the systematic campaign of terror and its genocidal consequences launched by the Pakistan Army on the night of March 25th. Hardest hit have been members of the Hindu community who have been robbed of their lands and shops, systematically slaughtered, and in some places painted with yellow patches marked H, end quote. Seeing the millions of Hindus and Bengalis who had come to India as refugees, India entered the conflict. Under the guidance of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, India went to war with Pakistan to liberate Bangladesh on December 3rd, 1971. This began the Indo-Pakistan War, a defense of 1971, a defense of Bangladesh on both its eastern and western fronts. Although the war lasted only 13 days, it was the impetus for the surrender of Pakistan and the liberation of Bangladesh. The legacy of the genocide is still felt today in the continued violence against Hindus in Bangladesh. Here you'll see General Niazi of Pakistan sign the instrument of surrender, bringing an official end to the 13-day Indo-Pakistan War, and in some ways, an end to the 10-month Bangladesh Liberation War. Bangladesh became a country on December 16, 1971. But as we all know from recent events, where a Hindu village was attacked because of a social media post, the legacy of violence against Hindus in Bangladesh continues. There's a lot we can do to prevent this violence occurring now and to affirm the genocide that happened, to remember the lost and celebrate survivors. The 200 to 400,000 women were raped, the 2 to 3 million people that were killed, and the 10 million displaced need to be remembered, and they deserve to be remembered. The legacy of continued violence against minorities in Bangladesh must come to an end. First, I'd like to encourage you all to learn more. This March 2021 is the 50th year since the 1971 Bengali Hindu genocide. To start, I want everybody to take this opportunity to go to genocide1971.com. Please educate yourself and your communities through this web portal. Next, I'd like to encourage survivors to share their story. If you are a survivor of the genocide, please share your story. We want to make sure your story is remembered. Please share your perspective and any images and documents you have from that time period. Your information is valuable in advocating for affirming this genocide and making sure the legacy of violence does not continue. Last for now, but not least, is a community art project. If you're an artist and you can sing, paint, write poetry, or create art in any form, please create and submit your art to remember the lost and celebrate survivors. The community art project is for all, young and old alike, and we hope you will submit art which can be used to raise awareness about this genocide. There's a lot more that we can do to raise awareness and affirm the genocide. And so please stay tuned for our Director of Public Policy, Tanyal Kushek-Jain, who will be giving us more information a little bit later. Let us now remember Hindu precepts on the appropriate response in the face of such powerful injustice. To help us do this, we're honored to have Aks and Lakshmi, a composer and vocalist duo who specialize in electronic bhakti music. They are pioneers in blending raga influences with electronic and pop genres to create powerful spiritual experiences. Please welcome composer and vocalist duo, Aks and Lakshmi.
Namaste, everyone. We're Aks and Lakshmi, and we're honored to be here virtually with all of you at HAF's commemoration event, remembering those who were lost in the 1971 Bengali Hindu genocide.
We'd like to share a Sanskrit benediction on universal brotherhood for this occasion. This song was specially written by the Paramacharya of Kanchi for the United Nations in 1966, and it was performed by the great classical vocalist M.S. Subbulakshmi.
मैत्रीं भजत अखिल हृजयत्रीं मैत्रीं भजत अखिल हृजयत्रीं आत्मवदेव परानपि पश्यत आत्मवदेव परानपि पश्यत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत त्यजत परेष्वक्रममाक्रमणम् त्यजत परेष्वक्रममाक्रमणम् मैत्रीं भजत अखिल हृजयत्रीं मैत्रीं भजत अखिल हृजयत्रीं जननी पृथ्वी कामदुघास्ते जननी पृथ्वी कामदुघास्ते जनको देवः सकल दयालु जनको देवः सकल दयालु दाम्यत दत्त दयध्वं जनता दाम्यत दत्त दयध्वं जनता श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां
Thank you, Aksan Lakshmi. I would now like to welcome Asim Shukla, one of the co-founders and past board members of HEF, to give HEF's first ever Posthumous Award.
Thank you. Thank you, Deepali. I'm honored to announce this year's HEF Award for the advancement of Hindu human rights, which goes to Archer K. Blood, the Consul General in Dhaka at the time of the genocide. Blood was one of the few American voices to speak out strongly against this genocide. The US's deafening silence on this issue and continued military aid to Pakistan despite the massacres. Blood authored several telegrams to the State Department expressing his dissent with the prevailing policy. One such telegram titled Selective Genocide read, and I quote, "With support of PAC military, non-Bengali Muslims are systematically attacking poor people's quarters and murdering Bengalis and Hindus. After receiving no decisive response from the administration, Blood drafted a telegram expressing strong dissent. The telegram, Dissent from US Policy Toward East Pakistan, was signed by all of the staff of the consulate in Dhaka, but not directly by Blood himself. Nevertheless, his previous telegram set the stage for this final expression of dissent, and so the telegram came to be known as the Blood Telegram, a telegram which set a precedent for US diplomats to express to the State Department leadership their dissent in extreme circumstances. Decades later, Blood reflected on the effects of this dissent. Quote, "I paid for my dissent, but I had no choice. The line between right and wrong was just too clear-cut," end quote. Margaret Millward Blood, Archer K. Blood's widow, will receive this award on his behalf. Thank you, Mr. Blood and Mrs. Margaret Blood, for your support of Bengali Hindus during the horrifying events of 1971. Thank you.
Thank you, Asim. I'd like to now welcome our Director of Public Policy, Tanyel Kushakshan, to tell us all what we can do to commemorate the 1971 Bengali Hindu genocide and lift the voices of those lost and those who survived.
Thank you, Suhag, and it's an honor to be here. I want to first read a couple of statements from members of Congress who have just submitted into the Congressional record their remarks commemorating the Bengali Hindu genocide. The first is from Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Houston, Texas, where there are thousands of Hindu Americans in her district, and Texas being one of the largest homes of Hindus in the United States. And her statement for the record states, "Madam Speaker, I rise in sad remembrance of the 50th anniversary of the Bengali Hindu genocide and celebrate and honor the lives of the more than 2 million Bengali Hindu persons who were systematically killed by the Pakistani army when it launched an offensive into East Pakistan, present-day Bangladesh, thus beginning the 10-month reign of terror known as Operation Searchlight. Over that time, approximately 2 to 3 million people were killed, over 200,000 women were raped in organized rape camps, and over 10 million people were displaced, most finding refuge in India. I offer my prayers and condolences to the victims and their families who still feel the very real effects of this heinous crime against humanity. March 25th officially marks the beginning of the genocide in Bangladesh. The brutality unleashed by the Pakistani army and the targeting of Bengali Hindus simply because of their religion must be strongly condemned, as religious freedom is one of the most sacred of human rights. It has been 50 years since the genocide in Bangladesh, and the survivors and their descendants are still fighting for recognition. They are still fighting for an apology from Pakistan, as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh formally asked her Pakistani counterpart as recently as January of this year, and they are still fighting for justice and for closure. On March 28, 1971, Archer K. Blood, U.S. Consul General stationed in Dhaka, present-day Bangladesh, during the genocide, sent a cable back to Foggy Bottom with the subject reading "Selective Genocide." In his cable, the Consul General informs his superiors at the State Department that, quote, "Here in Dhaka, we are mute and horrified witnesses to a reign of terror by the Pak military, and that the full horror of the atrocities, quote, will come to light sooner or later. That is why I rise to remember and acknowledge that history so that victims and survivors of the Bengali Hindu genocide know that the people of the United States stand in solidarity with them. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield the balance." And that was the remarks, the record, a written statement entered into the Congressional record by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And there's another statement from Congresswoman Judy Chu, Democrat from California, who entered into the record just today, quote, "I join with my Bengali constituents to honor and commemorate the tragedy that befell Bangladesh 50 years ago and the millions whose lives were lost or disrupted. The 1971 Bengali genocide is one of the worst human tragedies of the 20th century, with over 2 million lives lost and over 10 million displaced, the vast majority of whom were Hindu. In addition, over 200,000 women were violently raped. The campaign of sexual violence against women in particular was so severe that the United Nations was bringing in doctors to help treat these women. These terrible events began on March 25th, 1971 with Operation Searchlight, a military operation that intentionally targeted civilians because of the language they spoke and the religion they practiced. It was a deliberate, brutal response meant to silence Bengali voices and erase Bengali culture while snuffing out the flame of self-determination. Fortunately, this genocidal attempt failed, but not before too many paid the ultimate price. And the survivors still carry their scars even 50 years later. This violence was made worse by the failure of the United States to speak out against it. That is why I'm urging the US government and all Americans of conscience to not only join me in remembering this genocide and those we lost, but also to speak out against this kind of violence against civilians wherever it occurs. I also encourage more Americans to learn about what happened in the 1971 Bengali massacre so that we can start telling the truth about this genocide. So those were two statements that I wanted to share with you, because those will be entered into the congressional record. That record is permanent, a permanent record of the United States. And we're working to collect more statements like that. And so I want you all to help us get more statements, because the part of tonight's program is not just to remember, but it's also to take action for those who are unable to take action today. So if you go to HAF's Advocacy Center, please take action, send an email to your member of Congress, request that they make a statement commemorating the Bengali Hindu genocide in the congressional record. We have an action alert campaign on our website. If you go to the Take Action Center, Advocacy Center, you'll see the alert. You can do it on your phone right now, and you can send an email to your member of Congress, and we'll be sending out some broadcasts on that. The second thing you can do in your local community is ask your local city hall, mayor, city hall, or even your state representatives to pass a resolution or a proclamation commemorating the Bengali Hindu genocide. And we have a sample resolution for you on genocide1971.com that Deepali mentioned earlier. So if you go on our Bengali Hindu genocide page, there's on the right-hand side, take action button and then resources. We have a sample email for you as well, so you can just copy and paste and make it really easy for you. So those are two really great things that you can do right now. And the third thing is sign the letter to President Biden. We'll be sharing those links in the chat feature for everyone. So you can, 1, send an email to your member of Congress urging them to make a statement. 2, pass a resolution in your local city hall or city council, and we have that resolution on our website for you to download. And 3, sign the letter to President Biden. We have over 500 signatures to date. Last time I checked this morning, I'm sure we're over 600 now, but it would be great to reach 1,000 on that. We'll be sharing all these links in the chat box here in a few minutes. So thank you, Deepali. I'll turn it back to you. Or Suhag, sorry.
Hello and namaste. I think we have from Congressman Troy Nell's office, Bunga Reddy here. So if you can, has he been brought up to panelist?
Sure.
To say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you. So on behalf of Troy Nails, as a field representative, it's my honor to be here to listen to the tragic things that happened in 1971. And as I grew up in India, I shared the grief of Hindus, minorities in Bangladesh, and things that have happened in 1971. And Congressman Troy Nails shares the grief, and we are with you in support. And genocide has no meaning in civilized society, and it happened, and it's really the healing process, I believe, will go through for years and generations. And Hindus are being suffered wherever they are minorities, even at this time. And I really thank HAF for taking lead on this, and especially reaching out to everybody, and especially sharing the grief and pain that we went through. And definitely, I request everyone to reach out to the congressmen and enter into the congressional records to show solidarity and support to the grief that we are all facing, and especially, to Bengali Hindu community, to say we are all with you. And Congressman Troy Nails shares the grief, and as two great nations of greatest democracies, I think it's the time for address the issue with clarity, as Shuklaji mentioned. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we appreciate your coming on behalf of Congressman Nels.
Thank you.
So before we go on to our final performance, I'd like to open the floor for some Q&As. If you have any questions, I know that many of you have been putting them into the Q&A feature. So please do put them in there. We have about 10 minutes or so to take any questions. As those start queuing up, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge our organizational partners for HAF's 1971 Bengali Hindu genocide work. We'd like to thank Bangladesh Hindu Buddhist Christian Unity Council USA, the Indian Subcontinent Partition and Documentation Project, Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh Minorities, and Stories of Bengali Hindus, as well as Dr. Benkin. I'd also like to thank Priya Saha, Ruxana Hasib, and Ashok Karmakar, and other survivors who have come forward to courageously share their stories. You can hear many of these stories on HAF's podcast, That's So Hindu. Be on the lookout for additional content and programming. So, Dipali, I will ask a couple of these questions. One from Ashish Agarwal. Is there any current research project on the situation of Hindus in Bangladesh?
That's a great question. Keene University has a group that's studying the Bangladesh genocide. In regards to the issues currently ongoing in Bangladesh, many South Asian studies departments address these issues. In regards to the Hindus that are being that are suffering in Bangladesh at the moment, there's not a lot of scholarship. But if you go to the genocide1971.com website, there you'll find a lot of great scholarship. And in particular, I'd like to recommend The Blood Telegram by Gary Bass, which gives a very detailed and thorough account of the genocide in 1971 and how Hindus specifically were targeted.
Here's another question. Hindus are still being persecuted in Bangladesh as well as Pakistan. What can the US government do? Is the US government relatively silent on this issue? Are they unaware of it? What could we as constituents do to raise the voice of ongoing issues of violence and persecution in these two countries?
So what is the United States currently doing?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'd love for Tanyel, our Director of Public Policy, to jump in on this question because he's done a lot of great work raising awareness about the Bengali Hindu genocide. But really quickly, I'd just like to note that this genocide, just like the Holocaust needs to be remembered, the Armenian genocide, the Rwandan genocide, this genocide also needs to be remembered so that we can work towards nonviolence. And although the United States was complicit in the genocide by supplying arms to the Pakistan military, there's not a lot that has been done. And so I'm really thankful for Tanyel for all the work that he's doing. Would you like to speak to what's going on right now and how the response has been so far?
Sure, thank you, Dipali. The events that are currently taking place, the persecution of Hindus in Bangladesh, it's just another incident in a long line of incidents that stem from 1971. We see that same evil still manifest itself today. And that's why we talk about what happened in 1971. That's what makes it so much more important, is because these events are still happening today. If you look at the population of Hindus in Bangladesh, there is a steady decline after census, year after year. Why is that? These are important questions that need to be asked. And so what we're doing at HAF is trying to alert elected officials and members of the administration of what is going on and help them connect the dots too, in case they haven't been able to. But these are smart people in the U.S. government, and they are receptive to meeting with HAF, to hearing from us, and so we share the information that we can confirm through our sources on the ground and with our partners that Dipali mentioned here in the United States and abroad, to confirm those violations and to report that and to make sure that those violations are included in the State Department's report, or the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedoms report. Those reports are coming out in the next month or 2 months. We will be sharing our information that we collect with the State Department, with USAID, with USCIRF, and both the Foreign Relations and Foreign Affairs Committees of the House and Senate. So we do that work day in and day out. We don't talk about it every day. We don't post a tweet about it every day, but we are working on doing just that. And we remind those folks of what happened in 1971, specifically because some of those events are still happening today.
I'll also add that a couple of years ago, we did send an HAF staff member with one of our organizational supporters, Utsav Chakravarti, to Bangladesh to speak to people on the ground, to do a needs assessment and to know exactly what the ground realities were showing in terms of the safety and well-being of Hindus in Bangladesh. And later that year, or a year later, maybe a little time later, we were able to testify in a hearing before the US Congress. So these are all things that are possible as a result of community support and our mandate to give voice to Hindus who are suffering around the world. Taniel, I'd like to ask you this because as an Armenian, you worked very closely with the Armenian community to get the Armenian genocide recognized. What type of timeline are we looking? I mean, we're commemorating 50 years tonight. Maybe you could lend some of your experience from your own community so that the Hindu community can get a better understanding of what it takes and how long it might take.
Sure. So two things I want to say about that. One, as a descendant of survivors of genocide, the Armenian experience is very interesting, especially because it wasn't until 1965 or the 50th anniversary of the Armenian genocide that the global diaspora sort of woke up. And if anyone here has dealt with trauma, has spoken to survivors, as a survivor themselves, or has a relative or a friend, you know that there's kind of two types of people. There's that survive this type of trauma. Those that talk about it and can't wait to get it off their chest, and they have to tell the story, and they tell everyone. And then there's the type of people who don't talk about it, who bottle it up, who keep it all inside, who don't tell the story, who don't tell their relatives and their children about what happened. And I can tell you, in my own family, I've had family members who were both. And so the Armenian community globally didn't start fighting for recognition and affirmation of the Armenian genocide, didn't start until 50 years after. So, and that was something that happened over 100 years ago now. So for Hindu Americans, I want to let you know that it's not too late to start fighting for recognition of this genocide. It's an uphill battle. It takes time. But you chip away at it and you work at it and you don't give up and you keep fighting, because there are people who can't fight anymore. Their voices were extinguished. And so it's up to you as those relatives to carry that forward. And so it's never too late. You have to do that. And on that note, the things that you can do now, we have technology. We can sign the HAF letter to President Biden. You can take action and get a member of Congress to make a statement. All of this is important in building that case for recognition. And the recognition will come. We just got to keep fighting for it.
Thanks. And you touched upon it, but maybe, Taniel, if you could, because there is a question that could HAF request the Biden administration to appoint a special envoy to investigate the welfare of Hindus in Pakistan and Bangladesh. And so you mentioned the letter, but if you could just give a little bit more detail and how people might be able to get involved in that.
So two things. One, that's a terrific idea. As far as a special envoy, we have at the State Department the International Religious Freedom Ambassador. With that post is currently vacant, and that's sort of the role that position entails. And so we're trying to get the Biden administration to fill that role. We had a former Ambassador Brownback fill that role, and he was an HAF Award recipient and fantastic advocate for Hindu persecution in South Asia, particularly Pakistan and Bangladesh. But I agree that there needs to be greater attention spent and attention paid to what's going on there, and that's some of the things that we're trying to do. But as far as a special envoy, I'd love to see that. I don't know if it's going to make the radar of this administration, but we will continue to advocate and fight for recognition of what's going on today, and to get some statements, because the Bangladesh government and others, they listen when the United States government speaks up. And so right now we're just trying to get the US government to speak up.
And I see, I'll just answer a question that's come up a couple of times in the Q&A feature, and that is, how can we do more to make sure that this story is heard? And, you know, the one quick and easy way for you to be able to do that is to visit HAF's Take Action Center. In our Advocacy Center, we've tried to make it as easy as possible for you with a draft letter, with a resolution that you can take to your city council, to your state legislature. You can craft a letter to the editor or whatever you can, but it's up to each one of us to amplify the voices of those who cannot be heard any longer. And so how can we amplify the voice? By working together and remaining committed to giving voice. So with that, I will move on to our last performance. We have with us Shayanti Ghoshal. Shayanti is an economics student at UC Davis in California and a student of Hindustani classical music. She's here to sing a song by Rabindranath Tagore called Shukodin Nishidin, and she provides a stirring rendition. She is the child of West Bengali parents and Bangladeshi grandparents. Please welcome Shayanti.
নমস্কার, আমার নাম সায়ন্তী ঘোষাল। আজকে আমি আপনাদের জন্য রবীন্দ্রনাথ ঠাকুরের একটা গান শোনাবো। Thank you so much to Hindu American Foundation and to Tharini Aunty for giving me this opportunity to sing and to spread awareness about the Bengali Hindu genocide 50 years back. আশা করছি যে আপনাদের ভালো লাগবে। নমস্কার, আমার নাম সায়ন্তী ঘোষাল। আজকে আমি আপনাদের জন্য রবীন্দ্রনাথ ঠাকুরের একটা গান শোনাবো। Thank you so much, Hindu American Foundation and to Tharini Aunty.
Dipali, I think we're having issues with the video. Maybe if we can just rebuffer it. Is it frozen? Maybe Samir, are you able to maybe screen share so we can enjoy the performance? Samir?
Namaste.
নমস্কার, আমার নাম সায়ন্তী ঘোষাল। আজকে আমি আপনাদের জন্য
As we wait for the video to queue up, I would just like to invite all of you once again to not just visit, but to share our website, genocide1971.com. that will help us raise the voices, to spread awareness, and to educate people about what happened 50 years ago to our Bengali brothers and sisters. Are we ready with the video?
নমস্কার, আমার নাম সায়ন্তী ঘোষাল। আজকে আমি আপনাদের জন্য রবীন্দ্রনাথ ঠাকুরের একটা গান শোনাবো। Thank you so much to Hindu American Foundation and to Tarini Aunty for giving me this opportunity to sing and to spread awareness about the Bengali Hindu genocide.
We have a frozen screen. So I believe we are having a technical difficulty. So let me see if I can share my screen. There we go.
আশা করছি যে আপনাদের ভালো লাগবে। সুখদিন নিষেদিন পরাধীন হয়ে, সুখদিন নিষেদিন পরাধীন হয়ে ভ্রমিছ দীন প্রাণে সতত হায়, ভাবনা শত শত নিয়ত ভীত পীড়িত শিরনত কত